What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And thank you very much for tuning into the drop-in. I'll tell you what, this last couple weeks has been out of freaking control. It has been out of control. I put a post up on social media a few weeks ago, and I wanted to talk to people about their sobriety. As you know, as I'm very open about, I've been sober 5.5 years. It has been an amazing 5.5 years. The people I have met. My normal friends are awesome. They are still my great friends, but I have met some of the most amazing folks in sobriety. So over the next, actually, we're working on booking all the way to the end of the year. So we are in the end of July right now, I think. We're not in August yet. And all the way to the end of the year. You're going to hear so many different people's stories, different demographics, different age groups come in and talk about their journey to sobriety. So make sure to share this stuff, send it to anybody you think can help them, because that's the goal of all these shows, is to let people know there is hope. And when I put the message out, one of the very first people who reached out to me is my friend Bill. He was like, dude, the last 3 years have been crazy. I'd love to come back on and talk about it. And him and I have spoke for years now about our personal journeys, and it's a blessing to have you in studio to share it with our drop-in audience. So thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for reaching out, and thank you for being here today, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How was the drive in, dude? Traffic is crazy.
It is, and it seems like it's getting worse and worse. But no, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, as soon as I seen you put that up, I'm in. Because there's so many, I don't know. I watch her. It's like sometimes I'm like that. I'm a little bit of, I know we don't have a lot of in-depth conversation, but I'm always watching. And I see a lot of your posts, a lot of the spirituality, and a lot of times that's what I need. I need that spirituality because I don't know. I mean, sobriety is I'm not a very religious person, but spirituality I picked up and I hold on to that tightly. And I guess I kind of describe that as I do have my higher power, and it's not that I have anything against God. It's more the fan club, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm watching these levels up here. Could you slide your mic just a little closer and make sure we get every word? Perfect. Perfect. Okay. You're exactly right. Sobriety gave me so much. I fell in love with myself.
Exactly.
When you get over something that you do for you, something is going to kill you, which I did, when you find a new path, if you're an AA person, if you're a refuge recovery person, whatever path that is, because it's not one size fits all. You find your way, and I do believe, regardless of your thoughts on God, I believe spirituality is a very important part of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. So let's take a look at this, because the outline that I sent you was really loose, and I tried to put it with very open-ended questions because we haven't talked about any of this stuff. So I'm going to be learning as you guys are learning. How the last 3 years have been in Bill's life, and also we're going to learn a little more. So over the last several months, or the last several weeks. Like I said in the opening, I reached out to sober people. You were one of the first people to come on to reach back. One, I'll give you a two-part question. When did your sober journey start and begin? And two, was there one particular incident that just put you in that space to say, I have to do whatever I have to do to not be in this position again?
Well, the journey began in, actually when I was 16 is when it began. And I actually went to Maple Grove, which is right out there by where I live now, ironically. So at 16 was when I was first introduced to the program. I was in an inpatient rehab, but it didn't stick. I was doing what I had to do to stay in my house. It really, I got sober December 20th, 2004. The crazy thing is July, I think it was July 30th, 2004. I had gotten my fourth DWI. And the only thing I think that saved me from prison was that fourth DWI was in Texas. Now I did look. Of course, I was on the internet looking up. Can Texas pull them?
Right.
Can
Because
they?
it was three
Can
strikes, you're out, right?
Yeah? Can they pull these? Can they pull these DWIs from other states and use it against me? And they could if they wanted to. If they wanted to, they could because they were all within 10 years. And so I could have done 6 to 8 years in prison. And I mean, daily, I was checking to see on the county website, had they changed my charges, and my charges never changed, so it was still a first offense, and so I still drank. I still drank for another, I'm gonna say, well, till December 20th. I mean, even that was not enough. Even the thought of going to prison and all that other stuff was not enough to stop the urges and the chaos. And it was funny because I actually came back here to visit family and friends, thinking I was going to prison. So I was like, I'm gonna go see my family because my court was like first week in January. So I came back here and I was gonna visit everybody for Christmas, get to see everybody because I thought for sure I was going to jail. And I was downtown. I can't even remember the name of the bar, but I was with some of the people I skated with. I was with some of my punk hardcore friends. My brother was there, and at some point during that night, the alcohol quit working. I couldn't get any drunker, so then I moved down to some coke. I wanted anything that was going to change the way I felt, and it all quit working. I couldn't get nothing. It was almost like divine intervention because I was hopping from thing to thing to thing, and nothing was making me feel any different. Nothing was filling that hole, and I literally spent the next 3 days in my mom's basement, curled up on the couch, terrified because I no longer had that defense. And so it was nothing by my choosing. It was more like this divine spiritual intervention that happened, and that's what set into motion my sobriety because I still hadn't grasped any of the spiritual living. I still hadn't grasped the fact that the drugs and the alcohol were a very minute part of what was happening, as I had a living problem. I didn't know how to live, and so I would mask everything, and drugs, alcohol, and the more sobriety I obtained, I started to realize all these things about myself, like I was very introverted, whereas when I was drinking and doing drugs, I was the life of the party. You know what I mean? I had no problem talking to people in general, not just women, just in general. You know what I mean? Whereas skateboarding in my younger years, skateboarding gave me that. It was a way for me to fit in. It because I played every sport imaginable. I played football, baseball, you name it. I never felt like a fit. So then there was still that social awkwardness of trying to fit in with all these, future prodigies or parents trying to make prodigies out of their children. So I picked that's when I think it was 1987 I got my first skateboard, and it was a Nash. It had like the saw blades.
Yeah. I think all of us at least in the Midwest, in the Midwest, it was like you had like Nash, whatever Kmart or Toys R Us was carrying, which was your beginner board was going to be a Veriflex Nash or something.
Basically like 3/4 inch plywood.
Yeah, totally.
Cut like a rocket shape.
But we loved them. We loved them.
Yeah. So it wasn't really. It was definitely nothing of my choosing. If I had it my way, I would. Who knows? I'd probably still be drinking. But some divine intervention in things at play, and here I am today, and I can't. Some days it's hard to express, the amount of gratitude.
Yeah.
Even on my worst days, and I think another thing, when I read that, when you sent the questions, one thing that popped in my head was this one day I was with one of my friends, and we had gone to this party, and he's like, do you need a ride home? And I'm like, yeah, do you want to give me a ride home? And he's like, where do you live? I said, I live off E-Course, so we got the E-Course, and where it was actually like E-Course on Monroe. There used to be remember that old abandoned McDonald's.
Mhm.
It went out of business. We took it over as a skate park. Well, there was a Taco Bell a block over, and that's where I lived in that abandoned Taco Bell.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I was homeless at like 16 years old.
Wow. Who else lived over there? Kevin O'Rourke,
Yeah, Kevin O'Rourke,
Phil
Nickerson,
Yep.
Dalio, all them guys.
Yeah.
You know, that's who I grew. John Russell. I grew up skating with all them guys. You know, Devin Fry.
Ironically, Devin still keeps tabs through social media on me. Sometimes I'll see Devin from Detroit, you know, like comment on some stuff. It's cool.
And I came up skating with all them guys.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was just you know, it's like looking back on things like that, and all the things I survived, you know, and all the things that, you know, sometimes I look back and it's like that recollection, like things that you don't even remember, like will pop in your head. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Right.
You know, like all the just absolute chaos and everything I endured. But back then I didn't have the mental capability to even begin to understand that, you know, everything that was happening to me was my fault. You know, that the living problem is that I was always justifying my behavior by somebody else's behavior. You know, like, you know, had my parents given me more hugs, had they done this, had they done that, instead of just saying, no matter what my parents were doing, had I just went to school and did what was it, you know, because you hear that all the time, you know, two kids growing up in the same home, one goes to prison, one's a lawyer,
Right.
you know, or one's a doctor, you know what I mean? So, I mean, on the other side of that coin, the most enlightening day of my sobriety, probably still to date, was the minute, the moment, you know, working with a sponsor, that I was introduced to the fact that I'm not a victim. You know, that if I trace anything that happened in my life far enough back, I'm going to see where I made the decision that led to all the other decisions,
Right.
and all the other occurrences. Had, you know, it was, and it's so far back in the wreckage that you don't even see it. You know what I mean? And all this while you're playing victim, which then perpetuates all the chaos in your life.
And justifies it. As you continue, it justifies that.
I'm the victim.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. I deserve this for whatever reason. Good, bad, or indifferent. You know, I need to check out right now. And you know, as you're talking, like so much is going through my head, but we never really know what it is going to be that, you know, if it's, you know, some people get it at a meeting. Some people get it their first rehab they go through. Some people, you know, and people often ask me, they're like, what was it that got you sober? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It was one day, February 2nd, 2017. I had already been through 3 rehabs, an insane asylum, you know, you know.
Dual diagnosis. Where,
Yeah.
you know, I was getting treated for substance abuse and mental issues.
Right.
You know?
And
I mean, I've been diagnosed everything you get, sociopath, bipolar, you name it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
and when you get to the real you, who you really are, when you start, for me, it was when I brought it up earlier, when I fell in love with myself in a very healthy, spiritual kind of way. Everything about my life changed. Everything, from the way I looked at past things to where I was at. When people do ask me, what was it? I'm like, I don't know. I walked in, looked in the mirror, and I'm like, either we're going to die right now, or you're going to do whatever it takes to dig yourself out of this hole. I don't know divine intervention exactly, because I don't know what it was.
I couldn't begin it. I know it had nothing to do with me.
Right,
you know,
right.
It was no decision I was trying to make.
Right.
You know, and one of the big, I was actually talking to my wife about this today, because we were kind of talking about, you know, because we're the same person in different skin, you know, and in the beginning, you know, we were like, man, this is going to be a curse or it's going to be a blessing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's ended up being a complete blessing. And but all the times we talk about being accountable, you know, I need to be accountable to my employer. I need to be accountable to my family. I need to be accountable to my friends. But we never ever talk about being accountable to ourselves, taking care of ourselves, being accountable to my happiness, being accountable to the things that bring and enrich my life. You know, being accountable to myself by saying, you know, look, you got that crazy thought in your head. you know, it's almost like, you know, you're my friend and you're talking about doing some crazy stuff, and I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to say, look, man, this is what I'm seeing. And then, you know, you do what you want with it. But at the same, we don't do that to, how many times do we do that to ourselves? Like, look, man, you're getting that crazy thinking, and you know what you need to do. You need to call somebody. You need to do something. You need to do your own intervention instead of, you know, where we start working mentally and spiritually, proactively instead of damage control. Because my whole life was damage control, and then I had to calculate the collateral damage that I was going to cause with my actions. You know, where today it's very minimal, and if there is any collateral damage, I'm very quick to, you know, do my part to clean it up. You know,
Because back then, I know for me, yeah, I would think about, you know, I might lose my job if I don't show up tomorrow. Who cares? Because I was probably still either drunk or hungover from the day before because I used to drink so much. And I'm like, yeah, who cares?
And hats off to all the people that go to work with hangovers and all that, because I was just like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
I would already start. I would wake up with a hangover, and if there was a half a bottle of vodka next to me, I'd already take the first drink, and then I'd go, yeah. Anything going on at work today? No. All right, I won't be in again. You know, like, and I was the boss at the time. Like, I was supervising people, and I just became very undependable. And I'm very thankful to this day that many of those people are still my friends and saw that it was a tough time I was going through, and that's the way I chose to deal with it. Not always the best way, not ever the best way, but you know, it just I'm thankful that whatever it was, whatever power stepped into your life and said, "This ain't working anymore, man."
The reality is, for people like us, is it's probably better we don't know.
Yeah.
Because if we knew that you know, and I tell everybody, it's almost like I was committing, you know, first-degree premeditated murder against myself because I knew. I couldn't tell you what was going to happen when I drank, but I knew that if I drank, you know, so it was almost like I was, you know, committing that, and so I think a lot of times, you know, and a lot of people will say that to me, you know, I don't think you really have any idea how you impact people's lives. And I'm like, you know, you're probably right, because if I did, you know, that narcissist in my head, it would go to my head.
Right.
So it's probably better that I don't know. It's probably better that sometimes I would get a brief glimpse of how we, you know, my life is impacting somebody else's in a positive way, because then it keeps me humble.
Yep. You know? And I think humility is huge. It's huge, and I think it comes naturally. As far as so many people that I've met in the recovery community, humility is part of their person, who they are today. And it's interesting, if you are at a meeting or somewhere and somebody is a total, like, egotistical kind of person, most people are turned off by that at a meeting. They don't want to hear a horror story for you. You know, they're almost gloating.
My whole life was a horror story.
Yeah, like, we've all heard it, you know. And even when I started laying out these shows, I'm like, it's not going to be an hour of horror stories. That's not what I'm shooting for. We've all have them. And you can watch them on the news. You can see them on reality TV. You know what happens. I wanna focus on the hope, that there is hope. I mean, you're listening to Bill talk about this. I mean, not just like a 2-year period or a 3-year period. This is a battle that lasted for a while, and to have something, whatever it is, come into his life and say, you know what, there's bigger things you need to accomplish. And I think one of those things that it's been waiting for you for decades is your wife, because you're doing magic in her life, and I think you guys are together. I see it on when you're together and what you post up. She's battling some things we're going to talk about a little later. And I think that's why you were put on this planet, and to shoot some amazing photography. I want to bring up your photography because the pictures that you post, and I'll make sure to follow Bill underneath here. You'll see his social media links and all that kind of stuff, because the pictures that you shoot at hardcore shows, those pictures have so much raw energy in them. that captures that you get because you're in it. You're in the mix. You're not standing back here.
No,
You're not standing
no.
over here shooting with a long lens. You are in it.
I call it full contact photography.
Totally, totally, and it shows in the images.
Yeah,
though.
I've gone home with knots, and you know, I've learned my lessons as far as like, you know, like my external flash stuff like that. I'll get a cheaper external flash, so I don't lose another $500 external flash.
Right.
I might pay like $100 for it or something. But yeah, I mean, I want to be in the mix. I want to be in the intensity, you know. And a lot of people, a lot of people used to say that to me, like, don't you feel like, you know, why don't you put your camera down and become a part of the show? I'm like, you don't think I'm a part of the show?
Right.
I'm in the mix. I'm not standing, you know, up in the balcony. I'm in the mix, and
Yeah.
I'm hearing the music, but I'm seeing it in a totally different way. I'm experiencing it in a totally different way, you know. And believe me, I think that I'm actually getting more. It's a more intense pull because now I'm absorbing the crowd, the band, the music, different elements. Whereas before, you know, I'm out in the mosh pit, and I might be locked down on only one thing, like the guitar or the drums or the vocals, or worrying about getting my head bashed in. You know what I mean? Where now, you know, and that's the thing too, is there's a lot of people that, you know, respect what I do. Meaning, there's people that have actually saved me more than once. Like I'm about to get blindsided, and I'll, like, out of my peripheral see, you know, like someone like intervene, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, and that's what I kind of laugh about that. You know, I call it the full contact photography.
Well, I love the energy, and when you guys look, when you check out his photos, you'll see what I'm talking about because they're different. They are different than the other shots you see from back. You know, the kind of stuff I shoot, which is with my phone from about 100 feet away, and I zoom in and take a picture of the band on stage. That's not Bill's photography. We're talking in the middle of the pit with. It's awesome. So make sure to check it out. And one other thing I thought that was really rad, and we discussed it, I don't know, about a year ago. You come out to shoot some skating stuff, and you talked about being a little bit of an introvert, but being behind that lens does something for you. And I thought that was a really rad way to look at it.
Yeah, and so especially like when I got sober, and the longer I stayed sober, and the further I got away from, you know, the drugs and the alcohol, I started to, you know, experience and become acquainted with like all the anxiety, my social anxiety, my social awkwardness, and you know what, man, I probably am bipolar. All those things I said, I don't know, but I picked the camera back up because there was a period in between, you know, where it got to the point where not even that, nothing, everything got pushed to the side. Family, friends, art, everything, music, everything, nothing mattered anymore. It was all about drugs and alcohol. And I found that, you know, picking that camera back up, it focuses my world. It takes all the chaos, and now it shrinks it through that lens, and I'm able to see and enjoy and experience everything because now the focus has changed. Where if I was just sitting there, I mean, I would hear, you know, it's almost like something out of a movie where you start hearing everybody's conversation and this guy's keys, and, you know, you get this like heightened sense, and it makes you crazy, you know. So my camera is what allows me to exist in a lot of different, you know, areas and venues in my life.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Take notes. Make sure you're taking notes on all this stuff because these little snippets, these little tidbits could help you or somebody you love. Maybe picking up a camera, maybe picking up a focus, maybe whatever it is, finding something you're passionate about. And I know it's helped me, especially, you know, Alice Cooper is, I think, one of the greatest examples because when he got sober, he turned almost like traded his addiction to drugs and alcohol to golf. People don't know he's like a scratch golfer. Dude can play on the pro-am and stuff. Alice Cooper. And sometimes that's what it takes, like focusing that energy of chasing it to something a little more positive.
Yeah, and even like when I was still in Texas, when I kind of was getting acquainted with the surfing community, there's a woman I met, and she worked for a nonprofit that dealt with PTSD victims. And so she kind of started, picking up on my photography, all the surf shots I was getting. And so I started talking to her, and it kind of bummed me out but we were going to get together and formulate a program where some of these soldiers could start, working through some of that PTSD and some of the things they were experiencing through photography.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I mean, I wasn't a soldier, but I mean, I guarantee that I could relate to these guys on a lot of levels.
Mm-hmm.
Violence, things I had endured throughout my life, and just, that social anxiety. So
Definitely.
I ended up moving back here, so it just kind of.
Yeah, we still got a lot of
Yeah.
days. We got a lot of days, but I think that's a brilliant idea. You know, we've seen it in the news the last 3 years. I mean, alcoholism's up, overdoses up. I mean, people have been closed off. They've been detached from just that common consciousness, that community. How has the last 3 years have you had that that loneliness that ever feel the need to pick up again over these last few years?
I can't remember the last time that I can't remember the last time I thought taking a drink, was going to fix anything, or that. I can't remember the last time I had a really strong urge to use or pick up. But for me, it's a little bit different. There's a little bit different process. For me, it starts with my behavior. Like, I'll start seeing trends or patterns in my behavior that are going to lead me back to the drinking. So I start to become despondent. I start to become isolative. I start to get short with people. You know what I mean? So there's little triggers I see, because for me, it's almost like there's that premeditation that I don't see happening. You know what I mean? And that's when I need to, like we talked about, that's when I need to be accountable with myself. But I also need people in my life that aren't afraid to tell me the truth.
Right.
You know what I mean? I need people in my life that aren't afraid to hurt my feelings. And
Those are some of the best friends.
absolutely.
Some of the best friends. I have one that lives a block away from me, and I'd say he's sort of a jerk, but he's one of my best friends because he'll tell me. He was telling me when I was drinking, and some of the best people you can have in your life are the tough ones.
I started therapy again. I mean, that was another thing. One of the most foreign concepts to not only my sobriety but just living in general, being a man, was that I had to surrender to win. I had no quit in me. So the whole concept of surrendering to anything was such a foreign concept to me. But it's like I don't have the luxury. I don't have the luxury of holding on to resentments. I don't have the luxury of holding on to, hate, things like that. Because that's poison. It's poison. It's poisoning me. If you do something to upset me and I'm resentful at you, it's like me drinking the Drano thinking it's going to hurt you.
You're right.
And it's not. It tears us up from the inside out, and then we're so full of this negative energy and all this, hate and resentment, and we end up, that's when I'm going to end up picking back up, or I'm going to end up doing, playing out some behavior that's going to lead me back to drinking, something so big and so, wrong that's when I'm like, now I have no recourse but to go back to drinking and drugging.
Right. For me, it's overwhelm.
Yeah.
Like I used to, because I still am. I'm getting better at it, but I was very much a yes man. Even if I didn't want to do it, I'd tell them yes. They'd be like, Gerald, can you draw this tattoo? Yes. Can you be here? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Because I didn't want to let anybody down.
Exactly.
And then I'd go and do these really cool things, and I'd be like, man, I deserve a half pint.
Exactly.
And then 2 weeks later, I'm calling my mom, going, my heart hurts, and she's like, how long you been drinking? I'm like, 2 fifths a day for the last 2 weeks, but my heart's tight, and because that's where it led 100% of the time. There wasn't a question of what was going to happen. I already knew what was going to happen. One drink, half pint gone, and after that I'm like, this ain't gonna be enough, and I'd be back at the store to get more. But it was overwhelmed for me, so I found different things that I can do when I'm starting to get that feeling, to either shift gears so I don't get any more overwhelmed, or I can go do some other things to get my mind off of that.
And that's where the photography comes into play. That's where there's different things that I'm working on. But it was a little bit more difficult during COVID because you didn't have those outlets.
Right.
I couldn't go shoot a show. So I had to reinvent my photography. You know, which I mean, in the beginning, it was kind of cool because I got these images and angles and content, out of the city that I normally wouldn't have gotten because of the sheer volume of traffic, of foot traffic, vehicle traffic, and the hustle bustle. So, um, at the same time that it was, eerie, and we as a species were going through something traumatic. I it's like I had to find some type of beauty in it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make some type of sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, like you talk about getting overwhelmed, I'm like, I could have like dug myself a bunker and like, oh my God, the world's gonna end, but I didn't. I chose not to do that. I chose to, go out and try to capture those images, and not only for myself, but I'm very free with my photography. Very very few times do I actually make money from it, and because I don't want to. I don't. I mean, there's times I do make money from it, but for the most part, I don't because I don't want to. I don't ever want it to feel like a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like, if people do commission me, it's because they've studied my work.
Right.
Because if you hire me to do something, that's what you're getting. Study the way I the way I see light, the way I compose things, the way I everything. Study all kinds of different aspects of my photography because that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
So.
Because I don't think, I know if somebody tried to hand you a script and say, this is what I want you to shoot, these images, one, you probably wouldn't take that job. Two, it would lose what I think is one of the most important things about your photography, and that's your view of the world. If somebody tries to take that away with a script, out the window.
And that's the biggest thing I explain to people is I'm not a photographer trying to get famous. I guess my photography is the same thing we're taught in the program is to live, based on attraction rather than promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Where if people like my work and people like my stuff, I'll share it.
Yep.
If not, that's fine.
Yeah. But make sure to check it out. You'll see exactly what we're talking about. If you don't have a clue right now, follow the link below. Check it out. For me in sobriety, I bring it up often. Self-love and I think self-acceptance are two of the top for me. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of anybody else. And I think that's an important concept for anybody. When I talk about self-love and treating yourself well, I think you need to come first and everything else comes second. And that's even if you have children, if you have whatever, because you have to take care of yourself. And that radiates out. I believe it helps everything around you, from your relationships to your profession to whatever it is. I really do believe that. Again, I'm going to talk about these last 3 years a little bit because it's been such a shift for everybody on the planet. I didn't have to shift too much because a lot of what I do, I can do in my basement. I can write at the computer. I didn't get to skate that much. I did build a quarter pipe in my backyard, but my daily maintenance, my weekly maintenance of sobriety, it became talking on the phone to my sober friends. It became going online to Refuge Recovery and catching a meeting here and there. Meditation. I now meditate 3 times a day because that became very important to me. Did anything like that shift for you? Any kind of maintenance shift for you other than changing what you were photographing?
And that's a big thing. Like dogs, canines. Canines are a huge part of, and not a lot of people know that part of it. But canines, I believe, were part of that intervention back in early 2004, 2003, 2004. It is because working with canines taught me to exist on a totally different plane, which was it's a totally different language. It's a totally different set of behaviors. It's a totally different existence. And so that kind of crushed me too, because canines are owned by humans. Well, now we're on the onset of this pandemic, and nobody knows what's going to happen. So all my clients stopped. So that therapeutic value of working with canines was also gone, which was a huge part of my daily maintenance. Even I could have the worst day in the world and go work with a dog for an hour, and it just resets everything because now I'm not caught up in all the excess of being a human. As humans, there's so much excess to our communication, our emotions, all of it. We're very excessive. Where canines are they work on energy. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to. 90% of what I do with dogs is nonverbal because 90% of what they do is nonverbal. 9 times out of 10 as humans, we're cued in when we hear the bark or some auditory response from our dogs. So I had lost that. So I started doing a little bit of, a few things on the phone, just kind of reaching out, keeping myself accountable. Hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. And getting out and changing my focus on photography. And then also, I think it was like probably, well, I forget when the first shutdown was, but I know.
It was May 2020. I think.
Was it May or April maybe?
It might have been April because my father actually, the day they shut down Southeastern or Michigan, my father actually got COVID like that day.
Yeah.
He went to the doctor. They're like, straight to the hospital.
And that's when it's it's such a great story, how I met my wife.
Yeah, get into it because we're gonna get into it anyway. So let's start here, man.
And so I originally met my wife in 2017 when I was doing Hardcore Cares. And so I had the annual barbecue, which was every July. We would do the Hardcore Cares barbecue. And so that's when I originally met her. And at the time I was married. So nothing ever became of it. And then I had no idea that, like she had any feelings for me or anything like that. And so she had found out that I moved back to Michigan. And so I think it was like early February, she started sending me some messages, commenting on some of my posts and stuff. And so it was so funny because she would like message me, then I wouldn't hear from her for a week. Then she'd message me, wouldn't hear nothing for a week. So it was like, finally she messaged me on March 20th. I'm like, whatever, she's going to message me, and then I'm not going to hear from her for however long. But we pretty much haven't been apart since March 20th. So it was like right before the pandemic hit, we had started talking. And, neither one of us knew what was happening because, just the way we felt about one another, the instant connection, the conversation, the everything, and so we're sitting there like, we barely even know each other.
Right.
And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to see each other? Oh my God, if we have to isolate. And so we would literally, I think for the first, we moved in May 10th is when we moved in together. So from March 20th to, May 10th, the day after Mother's Day of 2020, it was almost like Romeo and Juliet where we had our little spots and we would meet, we would have dinner, we would have lunch. We spent at least a minimum of 30 minutes to an hour together every single day, outside of like texting and stuff like that. But and that's what I mean by we were both the same person, as far as like we both had, our demons that we were working through and working past. And thankfully, we both had enough, trust and a little bit of that grit, to see things through and to allow one another safe passage, to where, she likes to say that, she's so grateful for my presence in her life, the patience and being that person who's the parallels of what we've gone through, what we've endured, or so much alike. And that's where I was like, this is either going to be a curse or a blessing.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? And it ended up being a blessing, because we stuck it out. And we didn't always know why, but we knew, this is where I need to be. And so we finally made it over all that stuff, to where we kind of gave each other that safe passage where, okay, I'm letting my defenses down, and truly let somebody care about me. Truly, that vulnerability that, sometimes we talk about, but we don't ever really experience because we're like, it's kind of, you know what it's like? It's like that first time you ever stood on the edge of that half pipe to drop in.
Right.
The very first time. I mean, you're on the ground, that half pipe, that 6 foot half don't look that big. You're staying on the lip looking down that transition. You're like, man, it looks a lot bigger up here.
And you can't explain it to anybody. You can't replicate what it might feel like because it's such a unique experience. And I think that's a wonderful analogy, putting these two things together, from dropping in to vulnerability, because you can't explain to somebody how it's going to feel to be vulnerable. You can't tell them, oh, it feels just like being embarrassed. It doesn't. You can't do that.
I still remember that first time. It was Kevin O'Rourke's ramp. I think it started out 8 feet and got cut down to 6, but and standing up there and just wondering what is going to happen,
right?
And allowing myself, getting to that point where I said, you know what, I'm probably going to fall, and this is probably not going to
take the slam. Take the slam.
So then you take that leap.
Yeah.
But then sooner or later, your body, your muscle memory kicks in, and it's one fluid motion.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the way it kind of felt. It's like, it's like, I'm either going to do this or I'm not, so it's been a very, and, her issue, not even issues, and that's the thing, that's one of the things, I don't treat her like she's broken, it's part of who she is, the lupus, the scleroderma, and the things she's dealing with, they're not issues, they're not, to me, they're not, I don't feel like she's broken. It's just, that's part of it. That's part of our life. That's what we do. It's incorporated into our daily living.
Well, I was so stoked a few months back when you posted a picture of her wearing a Purple Heart shirt, because she embodies exactly what Purple Heart represents.
And it made so much sense. And to me, it was like this perfect little storm that came together, because purple is the color for lupus. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
So it's like every time I send her like a heart emoji, it's purple, because that's the color for lupus. And then Purple Heart, I was just like, I had just seen you got that T-shirt, and so to me it was such a powerful union of supporting your brand, supporting you, but at the same time supporting my wife, and because a lot of people don't understand it. They don't understand what it takes for her to get up out of bed every day and go to the gym. We sit there, healthy people, and like, oh my God, I gotta go to the gym. Try the pain and just her body always attacking her, And so that's what I would tell her, is like, she would ask me sometimes, if I was proud of her. I'm like, you getting up and putting your feet on the floor, is more than most of us endure in a whole day, a lifetime, Just her getting up out of bed and deciding to, just to put her feet on the floor.
That's rad. That is rad. And amazing. And like I said, that divine intervention years ago put you on the planet to be here today, talking with us, talking with you guys, and being there for your girl. And that's freaking, I mean, I always talk about the goosebumps on my body, because there they are. You can see the hair standing up. It's incredible, Bill. Incredible. To shift gears just a little bit, I want to talk more about the four-legged friends that you've been helping people get to know even better over the years, because I didn't know you were still training dogs.
Yeah.
I did not know that until today. I wasn't sure because of everything that has gone on the last few years. Because you have, who did I see the other day? Kim Thone.
Kim Thone.
Yeah, I saw her the other day, and I'm like, Bill's coming on the show,
she's
man.
good people. She was actually on, when I ran Detroit Billy Course, she was actually on our board.
Yeah, and I announced one of the holiday galas one year, and it was her that put those together. And
that was I think there was like 3 or 4 different groups there. The big fundraiser out at Detroit Yacht Club.
Yeah.
I remember.
And I saw her the other day, mentioned you. She got a big smile on her face. She said the same thing about you. That's good people. I know. I'm like, you think I surround myself with jerks? You know, like I try to surround myself with good people. But you're still training dogs. Has the clientele shifted? Is it coming back? How is that going?
Oh, it's and I fought really hard. I kept I kept in touch with my clients, my client base. Even I would sometimes I would do Skype. Like just highly discounted, like half price. Maybe 30% of what I would normally charge. But I wanted to. I worked really hard on client retention. Plus, I knew that dogs were going to be, you know, I don't want to say suffering, but I mean, dogs depend on us so much, and we're going through a pandemic, and when we check out mentally on our dogs, they suffer tremendously.
Well, and the fear resonates. You talked about
Yeah,
like vibration
absolutely.
and how you don't even have to talk. I see that with my animals. We have a Shepherd Doberman mix that was rescued from Texas, and my little black cat
Yeah, I think
Penny.
I've seen a picture of
Oh,
it
they're
today.
beautiful, but they know my vibration. They know when I need a little snuggling. They
Yep.
know when they definitely know the vibration, and I'm sure the fear and the anxiety and everything else that
Yeah. It
was.
transfers, and we don't realize how sensitive our animals are.
Mhm.
And I knew also a lot of people were getting adopting canines for companions because now we've lost all our social interaction. We can't go to bars, we can't go to clubs, we can't go to all these events that we used to be able to go to because of obviously the pandemic. So I had to be creative. Like instead of in the warmer months we would just work outside. You know what I mean? Once everybody realized, no, if I touch your dog, you're not going to get it because I touched your dog. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because there was that, oh,
Right.
So I mean, it was kind of hit and miss, and it was rough. Some very very meager living, you know. But it all worked out, and that's part of it was me just saying to myself, not giving in to the fear, not giving in to that how I would normally just give up on myself. That self love you talk about, you know, I said I need this, and I set this goal for myself, and I need to for once in myself, like being the yes man. It's like all those things I do for other people, I need to turn that inwardly, and I need to do for me right now,
Mhm.
and that is a very powerful statement that you made because I finally realized that you know, if I'm selfish in a healthy way, meaning that I take care of myself first, everybody else and everything else that surrounds me is going to benefit from it. From me, allowing myself the things that make me a good person, like going out and doing my photography, working with dogs and doing the things that, bring me joy. Because then people are like, oh man, I love being around them,
Yeah.
as opposed to the people like, man, he's a really, you know, and I've always been that way because, I just, certain things bring me success. And once I feel like, someone is putting me into a box creatively, I shut down mentally, you know. And I feel like I become robotic where I'm just like punching a clock and going through the motions.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, that was when I went through my divorce in Texas, that was, there was no thought process as far as where I needed to be. And, as was saying goodbye to all my friends and stuff in Texas, I was like, I need my people, and my people are in Detroit, and I knew that I was going to be able to achieve those things here: the photography, the music contacts, um, the canine contacts, all the rescues, all the people I had worked with, all the people that were familiar with, my work with canines, and it picked up pretty quick, and it was like at the time that COVID hit. At that time, I had 15 clients, and then COVID hit, and then it just
Right.
and it took me a good probably 8 months to get back up to like 10 clients, where now it's very consistent. You know, where now
Now, is it just pit bulls or any
no
breed
any
of
breed,
dog?
and a lot of people ask me that. Like I started out. in the very early infancy of, the rescue humane, why I chose, back then it was like pretty much strictly American Pit Bull Terriers, simply because, back then there was no rescue transfers. There wasn't all this, glitz and glamour, that there is now. It was very, if the owners didn't redeem the dogs got put down. So I was like, it just didn't sit right with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I chose that breed back then. But then, as the years went on, so many breeds were being misidentified. Like anything with a blocky head and muscular was this umbrella term,
Right.
pit bull. It came very, very generic and very watered down. So that's when I moved back to Detroit in 2011 that I started Detroit Bully Corps. Is when we kind of switched to like bully breeds, because there was so many dogs being misidentified, as American, to me, when I heard the word pit bull, it was American Pit Bull Terrier, and that was it. But then you have all these other breeds that were being misidentified and mistaken, and all the hysteria. So, but no, as far as like the private training and the private sector, from a Chihuahua to an English Mastiff, and everything in between, because they're all dogs.
You ever see?
They're all dogs.
Yeah. You say Chihuahua to Mastiff. I actually saw a pit bull Chihuahua.
Oh, I believe it. I've seen pit bull dogs.
And it was that's the craziest thing. This little Chihuahua body with a freaking pit bull head.
It's like, how does it even support the head?
Think of how it was made. I'm like, oh no, I can't get that out of my head.
Like, I hope the female was the pit bull.
Right. But if folks, if any of our viewers want to reach out to you as far as getting your expertise on training their dogs, what is the best way to do that?
The best way would be to go to DBC, letter K, number 9.com.
So DBCK, letter K, 9.com. If you are either going to acquire a new dog, if you have a young dog that's unruly, any age dog?
Anything from, because I have that background as well in rescue. So proper decompression techniques to puppy kindergarten to dogs that are dealing with reactivity, aggression, anything in between. I've seen it. I worked with canines for 20 years, coming out of just about any situation you could even imagine. So dealing with all the different behaviors and anything from choosing the right dog to fit your lifestyle, to people that have existing canines, how to choose a canine to bring into your home. Because a lot of times what happens, and I explain it this way, it would be like if we were all in arranged relationships. Because now our dogs are losing that right of natural selection. Because we're going to the pound or going and getting a puppy and just saying, you're going to live with this dog and you're going to make it work. And it doesn't always work that way.
Right. That's a great way to look at it.
So then I'll explain to some of my clients, imagine that you guys had no choice. You guys were just put together in a relationship. Now make it work.
Right.
That's a lot of times what happens to our dogs. So.
Yeah, our dog, she came in. Finney was already like running the house. Little black cat. He's got all his claws. They get along very well, but you know who runs the show. Interesting. She's a rescue, and during COVID, I built a little quarter pipe because we couldn't skate the skate parks. And at the bottom, I had a piece of metal. And as soon as my skateboard wheels hit, I only rode the ramp one time. As soon as my skateboard wheels hit that metal, she jumped the fence. Like there was a weird sound. Yeah. And it was her crying. And it didn't sound like her at all. I stopped. I'm like, what is that sound? I go around the corner. She ain't stopping. She's a 100-pound dog, 97 pounds. Over the fence, gone. Wouldn't even answer to her name, nothing. Found her about a mile away. No problems. The neighbor saw what was going on, jumped in the car, found her. But I'm like, it's something with that sound with metal. When we load the dishwasher, if the pans are clanking together, she's getting better, but early on, she would go immediately upstairs under the bed. And it's interesting. And you have to be empathetic to if you rescue an animal, what those little things might be. And she'll walk up and sniff my skateboard. She used to like go the other way if I had it in my hand.
Absolutely.
But she is such a wonderful dog, and we're fortunate. Her and the cat go outside like dogs. The cat's developing dog, tendencies. The dog is developing cat tendencies.
Yeah, and they're probably both laughing at us.
Yeah, totally.
Like, can you believe these are the ones holding the leash?
Yeah, yeah. But animals are so important. Through my recovery, through my toughest times, Finney knew, my black cat knew. He knew I wasn't feeling good, and we have a very special bond because we've been through it together. He was with me for most of it, and it's magic what you get to do in helping. I mean, ultimately, if they're not trained, it's a free for all, and then ended up the humans end up not liking them, and they never gave them an opportunity to succeed.
Well, and that's the way I look at it. I look at what I'm doing now as a proactive approach to what I used to do, because the more privately owned canines, they get the proper training, and not only canines, but humans, and because that's the way I kind of look at I don't even like using the word trainer, but that's the word that people resonate with.
Right.
To me, I feel like I'm more of like an intermediary and a translator. So I've spent all this time with canines, understanding their behavior and learning from them and reading everything I can read, having a mentor that I'm accountable to. But then going in and then translating that behavior into like human metaphor so that the humans understand, oh, that's what my dog is saying to me. You know what I mean? So, and it's not about us being superior. It's more about us being, I'm a human, you're a dog, and it's my job to be an efficient guide so that you can safely live in this human world that doesn't even make sense to me half the time.
Right.
I can imagine how confusing it is for you. You know what I mean? So I become a translator, to just empower the human, go in, figure out what the dog is saying. We have our conversation. We work things out. Then the owners start to build confidence because they see their dog like, oh my God, he can do it. You know what I mean? So then the humans start to gain that confidence. So then they become open to learning and absorbing and looking at their canines on a new plane, and we become connected on that level.
Yeah.
And then there's a far less percentage of that dog ending up on the street, in a rescue, in a shelter. So.
Yeah, the most amazing dog, one of the most amazing dogs I ever saw. I had him a friend on the show a while ago, and this dog could smell red dye number 4 or something. The little girl was allergic to it. The dog could smell it. Okay. And they brought the dog in studio, and she's like, put this down, piece of food or something, and the dog would knock it out of your hand if it had red dye number whatever. If it didn't, the dog would look you straight in the eyes. And I'm like, that's incredible. Her young daughter, when she got to be 4 or 5 years old, was going to have to go out in the real world, and she was allergic to this, which is in so many products. And she found a dog, was so impressed that she started like a dog training facility or something. I can't remember the name of it. But that little dog, I was like, I was blown away by that. And I've heard like dogs can smell cancer. They can smell different things in the blood, all these weird kind of things. I don't know much about it, but that red dye thing like threw me for a loop. Cause
it's like a running joke with me. If like 3 or 4 dogs sniff a certain area on me in the same day, I'm like, oh great, do I have cancer? Do I need, you know what I mean? Because it is, it's just, they're so in tune with things on a different plane than we are.
Yeah.
Their sense of smell, their senses overall. So.
Incredible. Bill, you're incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. Like I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I know you guys have enjoyed yourself. Somebody's watching and they are either thinking about getting sober, maybe they've been sober a little while. You have any little nugget of wisdom that you could share that you haven't already shared? Because I hope you guys are taking notes, man. We covered a lot here, and I hope you guys are taking notes. Any little nugget?
The biggest thing I can share is the biggest thing that my sponsor shared with me is, when we get into that rabbit hole and we get into that ball of chaos, put your phone down, turn everything off, get a pen, a pencil, a piece of paper, and write it down. Because then you're accountable. You're being accountable. You're seeing it. Instead of like sitting there getting lost in Facebook or trying to, distract yourself, put pen to paper and write out what is happening, like a gratitude list, because then you can see it. It's tangible, instead of getting lost on our phone, getting lost in, I'm going to go take a drive, but then we really haven't dealt or taken, account of what's actually bothering us. So, just allow yourself the dignity to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Whether you're getting sober or not, you're going to make mistakes. So have a little bit of patience with yourself.
Yeah. Have patience with yourself. Well, dude, you're welcome here anytime. We might have to do like a whole, we might have to do a side show, because you talk so much about accountability, personal accountability, and that's one of my soapbox. Like, I talk about it a lot in the books that I've written, in the different things that I've done. I think personal accountability is at an all-time low, and we might have to start another show here at Woodward Sports, man. That was awesome. Awesome.
Last thing that's one thing I love about my wife. She has no problem calling me on my shit.
Yeah.
I need that. I need that in my life. I don't need people patting me on the back and all. I need people that are willing to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
I need it.
Definitely. So, once again, I'll thank you, brother, for coming in. Well, I'm sure we're going to do it again down the road. And thank you guys, man. Without you, I wouldn't even do a show. The reason I do the drop-in, bring you the most amazing guests on the planet, is it's all for you. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out Bill's photography. If you're looking for a trainer for your dog, if you know somebody else who needs a trainer, you go over their house, their dog's unruly, you got the guy who can help them out. So make sure to click the links, like, follow, share, all that kind of good stuff. But thank you once again for being here. Bill, love you, brother.
Appreciate it, brother.
This is Bill. I am Gerald, and this is The Drop-In.